Hello every pony, I am that fat brony, and as you can see I am new to YouTube. Well, I am new to making videos on YouTube anyway. Right now I don't have many plans for this channel. For now I'm just gonna read some fanfics, and if I get the opportunity I'd like to sing some MLP songs as well. I don't know how appealing my voice is, but I'll let you, the audience, judge whether I should continue doing these readings or not. But anyway, enough of my rambling. Today I will read The Great Brony Migration by Laichonious. At the time I'm recording this there are only 2 chapters, and I'll try to read it every few chapters. I'll put a link in the description if you'd like to read along. Okay, so, Chapter 1, Exodus. Footsteps echoed down the long makeshift hall. The air was dry and dusty, but what more could you expect from an old warehouse? A man of average height in his late 20s passed through the little pools of light from the large lamps bolted to the steel rafters of the warehouse. Serial didn't like the building, but it was the only one they could get after their original headquarters was nearly demolished by a flash hate mob. He shook his head. "Why do they hate us?" he asked for probably the millionth time. "We aren't hurting anyone. We just wanted to have fun. Why do they want to destroy that?" The sound of hooves striking the smooth concrete floor joined the soft thud of Serial's shoes. "Everything all set?" A yellow unicorn with a red spiked mane trotted next to him. "Yep," Serial said. "Rent is paid on the building for 5 years. After that it's being demolished. Is every pony here?" Seth, the yellow pony, nodded. "We just finished roll call. Every pony is accounted for and waiting for us in the acclamation chamber." He paused and took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. "I almost can't believe it's actually happening. 2 years of planning and coordination, and the day is finally here." Serial grunted in agreement, rubbing the side of his head. He took a long look at his hand, flexing it repeatedly. He had volunteered to be the last one to undergo the transformation. After all, they needed someone to put their affairs in order before they left. 2 years ago, the staff at Equestria Daily made the fateful decision to leave Earth. Their trans-dimensional portal had been working for a year before that, and they had the Pony-O-Matic doing permanent transformations a few months before. The sacking of EQD headquarters was the trigger for that decision. Other sites had started going down as the hatred grew, almost out of nowhere. EQD.com valiantly stayed online as far as he knew. It was the only pony site left on the net. It wasn't active anymore. They posted the general Exodus proposal and some of the steps to get into contact with them, and then froze it on a protected server, hidden away with some Brony sympathizers. To an outsider, the instructions wouldn't make sense, according to design. Only a true Brony would understand the cipher and know where to go. For 2 years, the Bronies gathered in this abandoned industrial park. They began transformations almost immediately. There had to be almost 3,000 ponies here. It made him worry that some didn't understand the cipher in their last post on EQD. There should have been a lot more of them here. Then again, the fandom wasn't what it used to be. The hate and stigma imposed by society had shaken many Bronies out of the community. They had ponies from all over the world united in their desire to find someplace safe. Okay, let's go through the final checklist. Serial reached into the yellow unicorn saddlebag and pulled out a clipboard. "I can't wait for my magic to work," Seth muttered. "So, you have the archive cart loaded, right?" "Yes, we have all the data banks from the pony sites, computers and generators. Printers and ink? Check. Paper archive binders? Check. Medical references? Check. Historical references? Check. Tints, waters, rations, medicine? Check, 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 check." Serial put the clipboard and checklist back in Seth's saddlebags. "You'd make Twilight proud. Now." Suddenly they were joined by a white Pegasus mare. "Hey, slowpokes, what's the holdup?" She tossed her bright pink mane. "Just going over some last-minute checks," Seth replied. "Well, some of the other ponies are getting antsy. They brought up some good questions, like, do we know what the sudden infusion of several thousand males would do to the equestrian population? Are we certain there aren't any endemics we carry? Do we take any human medicines, or can we just use equine medicines? A lot of them don't know if this is the best thing to do." Serial sighed. "We've been through this, foe. We don't really know. It seems like the population of Equestria is oversaturated with females anyway, so there shouldn't be a problem, unless you count their rapid growth as one. And we can't just stay here any longer. We sealed our fate the moment we started transforming humans into ponies. This world doesn't want us here. Our only hope is in Equestria." He shoved his hands into the pockets of his blue jeans and shrugged. It really was a shame that the rest of the world didn't want them here. He was sure all the Bronies felt the same way. Why did society try to pull down something so good? They have always been a positive influence on the internet. Well, with the exception of a few. They raised millions, maybe even billions of dollars for charities and other good causes. They were rewarded with hate and scorn. He shook his head again. What a mad world indeed. All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces. He started to sing with his best Gary Jules impression. Bright and early for the daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Seth continued. Their tears are filling up their glasses. No expression, no expression. Fo sang. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. Then all three in unison. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. The last notes of the sorrowful song gently echoed in the large building. I didn't know you sang, Serial. Fo turned her head and eyed him with a little smile. Serial smiled. Neither did I. They had reached their destination, a small room sectioned off from the rest of the warehouse by flimsy plywood walls. This was the transformation room. Serial had took steadying breath. Seth, go get every pony gathered in the portal area. Take a final count. I don't want any pony left behind. He looked at the strange contraption that filled up most of the little room. Fo, would you like to do the honors? Sure thing, boss. Fo took her place behind the control panel of the machine as Seth galloped off to do his assignment. Serial entered the chamber, then segmented steel walls slid shut. He quickly disrobed and threw the clothes over their side. Ready, he called over the low hum of the device. Initiating in 3, 2, 1. Now! Fo called. The machine charged up to full power in less than a second, emitting a high-pitched whine. Serial had no chance to really prepare for it. A blinding white light and the sound of rushing water drowned out the whole world. When he came to, he was lying on the floor of the small room, his head propped up on a pillow. Fo smiled at him. Welcome to your new life, Serial Velocity. 20 minutes later, Serial stood in front of a large, multicolored crowd of eager ponies. He felt much better now that he'd finally joined them. Standing was pretty much all he could do at the moment. He was still getting used to his new body, a light gray unicorn. Calculations are set, Captain. She's warming up and she'll be ready to go in 10 minutes, Seth said in a rather horrid impression of Scotty. You're doing it wrong, a true Scottish pony called from the front row of the crowd. Seth just waved a hoof at him and laughed. How long can we hold the portal open? Serial asked. At the most, 2 hours. Any longer and we run the risk of overloading the transformers, not to mention the power grid. The electric company would probably cut service before that happened, though, Seth replied. Every pony has a buddy, and they're all organized into groups, Fo said. We should be able to get all of them through in the first hour. Serial nodded. Can you bring me a mic? It was pep talk time. Seth returned with a mic attached to a stand, held in his mouth. He put it down in front of Serial and flipped a switch. Ahem. Attention, every pony. Serial's voice echoed over the crowd. They all hushed and looked at him expectantly. The day is here, our exodus from this world, he said solemnly. The gray unicorn imagined it looked very impressive, the massive Stargate-esque construction standing behind him, glowing with electric lights and slowly turning, his voice echoing in the massive building. Some of us are leaving friends and family behind. Others came here seeking friends and family. This world cannot accept our love or tolerance. It refuses to love and tolerate us. So we go to a better place. Are you ready, my friends? A loud huzzah exploded from the crowd, followed by, For Equestria! Another shout came from a few others. For the Empire! Answered by, For the Republic! From the other side of the crowd. Serial looked to his companions. They shouted into the microphone, For the Herd! The crowd answered with a deafening, For the Herd! Hit it, Seth! Fo shouted over the crowd. Seth galloped to the controls and slammed a hoof into the large red button. The portal growled to life. The sounds of metal grating against metal and small spurts of plasma jumping from the edges of the ring. It spun faster and faster, wind swirling around it as it gained speed. 50%! Seth yelled from the readout of the panel. The three ponies on the platform in front of the portal machine ducked their heads into the rising wind, the crowd doing the same. Lightning flashed inside and along the rapidly spinning ring. The air inside ionized, and the distinctive smell of ozone filled the building. 80%! Seth shouted to be heard over the cacophony of the machine. Every pony ready to run? Serial shouted into the microphone. The space inside the machine started to warp as if a giant magnifying glass were being pulled away from them. The image of the wall behind the machine distorted and finally flipped upside down, then shrank, leaving a blinding white light at the edges that grew with every passing second. 90%! Serial could barely hear him. A few seconds later, a low rumble shook the ground, rising in pitch until Serial could feel the air in his lungs start to vibrate. With what he'd imagined would be the sound of God's whip, the portal ripped open a hole in the fabric of time and space. The image of brightly colored meadow at midnight seemed to fall towards them, coming into focus and filling the large ring of the portal. "Ramps!" Foe shouted to the first line of ponies. They quickly ducked under harnesses and hoisted the large ramps next to them in practice motion. They trotted up to the large metal ramp and through the portal. Within seconds, the ramps were assembled together and put into place. "Go, go, go!" Foe practically screamed into the microphone. She suited her words and ran into the portal, laughing. Seth was only a few steps behind, whooping at the top of his lungs. Serial ran awkwardly after them, just ahead of the advancing column of ponies, pulling carts laden with supplies. He passed through the invisible barrier of the portal, the hair of his coat standing on end. It felt like jumping into icy water and passing through a dry desert at the same time. There was no sound. His ears rang with a sudden silence. He could feel a sort of tugging at his middle, much like the sensation of going down a roller coaster's first drop. Suddenly, he was across the portal and tripping down the wooden ramp. The ponies had taken the ramp came to his aid, helping him down the rest of the way. He thanked them and made his way over to where Foe stood gazing at the night sky. "This is it! We're really here, Serial! I don't recognize any of the constellations, and the sky can only be the work of Luna." Seth was rolling in the grass, giggling hysterically. Serial laughed, tears coming into his eyes. The ponies from Earth started coming through the portal in droves. Each group that came went through a predetermined area after clearing the ramp. The whole operation was going like clockwork. The group leader started organizing their members and began their tasks. "We're home," he whispered. "Finally home." And now, on to Chapter 2, First Contact. "You sure about this, Serial?" Foe looked at him skeptically. "I mean, it took the others several days to learn how to walk again. Are you really up to walking all that way?" The three of them lay on cushions in a large polymer tent. A single hurricane lantern sat on the floor in the middle of it. The fine screen window offered a fuzzed view of the meadow outside. Hundreds of tents of all shapes, sizes, and colors filled the window, each one glowing with their own lights. The meadow had been transformed into a tent city. Some ponies even took it upon themselves to find materials to make signs. The streets were named after various ponies or places. So far, no pony had tried to come up with a numbering convention for the tents. But it was just a matter of time, knowing the Bronies out there. "Yeah, dude." Seth's voice drew his attention back to the interior of the tent. "If we calculated correctly, we are 5 or 6 miles to the northeast of Ponyville. We won't know for sure until the Pegasus scouting parties come back." "I have to be the one to go, guys. I feel responsible for bringing all of us here, even if it was a joint effort," he said resolutely. "Foe and I could go. We were in on the whole thing from the beginning. I'm sure any questions they have, we could answer them. We don't need you getting hurt your second day in Equestria," Seth chided. "My mind is made up." He thrust a hoof into the floor to accentuate his point. "We're practically invading Equestria. I need to be there to take responsibility. We can hope for the reception we want, but frankly, it probably won't happen. We are strangers to them, and we have a lot of explaining to do. We might look like them, but we aren't part of their world. Not yet. I have given this a lot of thought, guys. They need to be eased into this whole situation. We don't have much choice in the matter, but hopefully, if we do this the right way, we just might find a home here." He could tell by the looks on their faces that they haven't thought of it that way. There was a rustle outside the tent. They could hear a few low voices approaching quickly. "That must be the scouting party." Seth got up and went to the tent door. A couple curses at the zipper later, he got it open. A blue Pegasus entered and sat down wearily. "Hey, Cloudhopper, why so tired?" Foe asked as Seth resumed his place. "I thought you were one of our strongest flyers. Are we that far off?" Cloudhopper shook his head. "The portal is only off by 2 miles. Right now the camp is about 8 miles or so from Ponyville. We would have gotten here sooner, but we kind of ran into a Cloudsdale weather unit." He gave a sheepish grin. "Rather than sticking around for that awkward questions, we bolted. We went in opposite directions so that we didn't lead them over toward the camp. It took us a while to regroup as one of our fallback points. I don't think we've been discovered yet, but I think it would be a good idea for everyone to turn out the lights. You can see the camp pretty easily from afar at the right angle. That is a good idea, Cloudhopper. Seth, can you go spread the word? We should all get some sleep anyway. It's not long until dawn, and it's going to take us at least a few hours to get to Ponyville. And yes, I am going with you, even if you have to drag me there in a cart. Serial opened the lantern and blew out the light. Foe sighed, but it didn't pursue the matter further. Seth and Cloudhopper disappeared into the night. Serial tried to sleep, but his mind was spinning and buzzing with thoughts and worries, plans and ideas. Who should we seek out first? Twilight? Fluttershy? Any of the main six? Should we try to get to Canterlot? No, that wouldn't work. They definitely wouldn't let a bunch of strange ponies go near the princess. He shifted his position on the cushion. The effects of the transformation were starting to take their toll. It would last only a few days, but the ghost pain was getting bothersome. To his mind, he still had fingers and toes. The nerve endings that used to be there were reconfigured, and some were just plain gone. Periodically, he could somehow feel his fingers, like they were in a bucket of ice water, and sometimes his toes too. He felt so exposed to everything. His light gray coat felt everything. The slightest shift in the air would send goosebumps rampaging over his skin. Serial shuddered as Seth came back through the door of the tent, a soft, cool breeze entering with him. "You awake?" Seth whispered. "Yeah," he whispered back, another shiver running through him. The yellow unicorn grabbed a blanket and threw it over his friend. "Here, this will help. After I transformed, I would get really cold at night, no matter how hot it was." Serial could hear him moving around, probably trying to find a comfortable position. "Seth?" he whispered. "Yeah? Do you think we're doing the right thing?" Seth didn't respond immediately. Finally he sighed. "Yeah, I think we are. You said it yourself. We couldn't stay there much longer. They would have found us. They would have seen what we did. They probably would have tried to kill us or cart us away to white labs and to experiment on us. Even if the ponies here don't want anything to do with us, at least we would be safe. Even so, I'm worried about how we'll survive here." Seth chuckled. "Buck up, dude. Everything will look better when the sun comes up." The unicorns fell silent. "No matter what happens," Fo whispered suddenly, "I'm happy that we're here." The air in Ponyville was buzzing with the talk of last night's strange events. Lights in the sky and thunderstorms with no rain don't happen, ever. The Pegasi were some of the most agitated. They flew back and forth from Cloudsdale and Ponyville like bees over a vandalized hive. Twilight paced the library. That storm was more than troubling, as she had felt a huge surge of magic during the event. It was a lot like the sonic rain boom, but something else entirely. A knock on the front door interrupted her speculation. Twilight?" Fluttershy's soft voice trembled through the door. She opened it quickly, startling the yellow Pegasus. A question about Rainbow Dash's whereabouts was stifled by the unexpected presence of 3 other ponies on her doorstep. "Twilight, if you aren't busy, these ponies would like to talk to you." Fluttershy kept throwing odd glances at the 3 ponies. Twilight took a second longer look at them. One was sort of a dull yellow unicorn stallion, a wild red mane sticking out in all directions. He kept looking around, wonder painted on his face. His gaze didn't rest long on any one thing. Standing next to him was a tired-looking light gray unicorn stallion. He was staring at her, in obvious disbelief. The third was a white Pegasus mare with hot pink mane. She seemed perfectly normal compared to the other 2. She even smiled at Twilight and waved a hoof. "Sure, I'm not busy. Come in," she said uncertainly. Fluttershy looked very relieved as she entered. Twilight narrowed her eyes at the gray unicorn. He walked like a young foal, his steps unsure, even tripping over his own hooves. "Wow, it's all here, isn't it?" The yellow unicorn peered at everything, eyes wide. The white Pegasus rolled her eyes at her companion. "Of course it's all here. Now stay on task. We have a lot of work to do." She smiled again at Twilight. Fluttershy and Twilight looked at each other. She heard it too, the odd way they made their words. It was a fast, almost slurring accent. My name is Twilight Sparkle," she began. The 3 strange visitors gave a small giggle. "Who are you?" she finished. The yellow unicorn spoke first. "I'm Seth." "I'm Fo," the white Pegasus said simply. The gray unicorn swallowed. "I'm Serial Velocity." Of the 3, he spoke the strangest. There was a distinct accent there, almost like he was biting off his words. "Well then, what can I help you with, Serial?" The other 2 seemed to defer to him, though he didn't say much. "I take it you aren't from around here?" "You could say that," he said uneasily. Serial let out a deep breath. "Look, I don't know exactly where to start, or how much I can actually say. We are refugees, and we need your help. He stopped talking abruptly when Spike ran into the room. All three of them almost stopped breathing when they saw him. Hey, Twilight, the little dragon said excitedly, clutching a scroll. Princess Celestia just sent you a letter. She's on her way. Oh, hello. Wait, Princess Celestia is coming? Did she say why? Twilight took the scroll from him. Unrolling it, a gasp came from the two unicorns as she did so. Did you feel that? Seth almost squealed. Yeah, Cyril breathed. It's nothing like how I imagined. It's so much better. Guys, Foe prodded Cyril with a hoof. You're weirding them out. She turned and smiled apologetically to Twilight and Fluttershy. Sorry about my friends. We're, new to all this. She gestured to the room in general. Twilight cocked an eyebrow, but didn't reply. Dear Twilight, the letter said, it has come to our attention the strange events have transpired near Ponyville. Luna and I will be arriving shortly. Meet us on the outskirts of Ponyville on the road to Midnight Castle. Bring with you the elements and tell no pony else. Princess Celestia. Twilight looked up from the letter. Sorry to run, but I have some urgent business to attend to. As soon as she finished, Cyril winced. That's, probably because of us. He turned to his companions. The jig is up. They know. Now what do we do? Seth grimaced. Cross our fingers? Oh, wait. Flo rolled her eyes at them again. It's pretty simple. We confessed, she deadpanned. What are you talking about? Twilight felt lost. It was like they were having an entire conversation in single sentences. Cyril looked abashed. We aren't really ponies, he said bluntly. I can explain everything, but I would rather explain only once. Is it possible for us to talk to the princess? Twilight thought about it. Wait, what do you mean you aren't ponies? He just shrugged. All right, fine. Only if you really know what happened last night. He bowed his head. I promise to tell you everything. Every bit of sense in Twilight's head told her that this was not real. It had to be some prank. And yet, something was not quite right. As she watched them, they started to take on a new light. Her eyes told her that the three ponies were sitting in her library, but her instincts whispered otherwise. Princess Celestia asked that I tell no pony of her visit, she said. Then you aren't breaking your promise, he replied, not a trace of mockery in his voice. Come along, then. They will arrive any minute, and we still need to round up the others. Twilight opened the door again. Cyril and Seth shivered. The others? The yellow one asked. Yes, she asked for all 6 of us. Fluttershy, can you go find Rainbow Dash? The wide-eyed Pegasus nodded and flew out the door. Come on. Seth let loose a low whistle. This just got real up in here, son, he said as he passed Twilight. She blinked. What a peculiar thing to say. They were being escorted to their meeting. That was the only way Cyril could describe it. They may not be trussed up in chains or locked in a wagon, but he felt like a prisoner all the same. He stumbled again. Foe threw out a wing and caught him before he could get a mouthful of dirt. At this rate, I'm going to have to switch sides, she said with a grin. You know, so one wing isn't stronger than the other? Maybe, he said, trying to sort out his unruly limbs. It was getting easier to walk. He just had a hard time judging how long his legs actually were. Y'all keep up now, Applejack called back to him. She immediately resumed her conversation with Twilight. Foe and Seth walked faster. Cyril plucked up his hooves a little more. What do you think is going to happen? Seth asked quietly. There's a few options, Foe said. Banishment to the moon among them. Seth snorted. No, really. You could be a little more original, he mumbled. I'm totally serious, she retorted. So am I, Seth muttered. Cyril sighed. We could speculate all day, but that wouldn't change anything. What we should be doing is thinking of how to present our case. Present our case? Are we going to trial? I thought this was just a simple explanation, Seth said. This time Foe snorted. We were only going to meet the goddess of the sun and ruler of the land we just invaded, she said with a healthy dose of sarcasm. Hey there, we just tore a hole open in time and space to just say hi. So we'll be out of your hair in a bit. Oh, and by the way, can we live here too? That's not what I meant, Foe, and you know it, Seth said dangerously. Hey, calm down, both of you, Cyril hissed at them. There's nothing simple about what we did, Seth. Okay, fine, it was a compliment, but don't you think that the princess will really make a decision today on what to do with us? Well, first impressions count for a lot. I would want to make it perfectly clear that we don't intend to change anything about their world. I think I can say fairly certainly that we all just want to live our lives here. If it means that we keep separate from the rest of Equestria, or they welcome us with open arms, either way, we are at her mercy. We can appeal to that if we explain our situation. It looked like Foe wanted to argue more, but they would never know. Not 10 feet away stood the two most beautiful creatures he had ever seen. Princess Celestia sat on a golden chariot that by itself would have been impressive, but was completely overshadowed by her majesty. Everything about her shouted power, from the way she sat to the way she held her head. Princess Luna was no disappointment either. Though smaller in stature than her sister, she wore mystery like a cloak. Her dark beauty was like the true voice of the night, one that the stars and moon could only echo. His heart was racing, his ears felt hot, his legs like jelly. Twilight spoke softly to Celestia. He didn't hear a word. The main six were gathered around the chariot, the sun glistening off the emblems they wore, the elements of harmony, all turned to face the three. Celestia finished talking to Twilight, and fixed them with an imperious gaze. All three immediately bowed. "Come closer, Serial Velocity. Twilight tells me that you know the causes of last night's curious events." Her voice was unlike anything his ears could compare. It was kind, yet commanding. Serial shuffled forward a few feet before bowing again and staying that way. His tongue cleaved to the roof of his mouth as he tried to work moisture into it. "Princess," he began. "You may rise, Serial. I promise not to banish you." She said it lightly, but he got a very clear picture of Trollestia in his mind as he straightened. "Yes, Your Majesty," he swallowed. "We are the ones responsible for what happened." He practically quivered from the magical aura that came in waves from her. "We are refugees, seeking a place to call home." Another deep breath. "We come from another world, and throw ourselves unto your mercy." "Mercy?" Celestia mused. "And how many is we? You and your companions?" He started to launch into how they were from another world, but stuttered. I'm sorry, Highness. Did you ask how many of us there are?" She smiled. Yes. She wasn't concerned at all that they were from another world. Was it so common an occurrence that she need only know how many came? 3,142. She blinked. "How many?" Serial could feel sweat rolling down the back of his neck. 3,142. He repeated furiously. "Hast thou any idea what thou hast wrought?" The explosion of the royal Kentrelite voice startled all of them. Serial and his friends were prostrate on the ground, trembling before it. Luna stepped forward, arching her proud neck in righteous indignation. "This magic thou hast made, it disrupts the flow of harmony. Why hast thou done this? Answer, stranger!" "Luna!" Celestia's reprimand cracked the air like lightning. The two sisters locked gazes. An intense, silent debate passed between them for endless seconds. The pressure of their emotions like a physical force, pressing down on him. Foe whimpered weakly behind him. Seth had his hooves over his head, muttering intelligibly. The deadlock broke. Luna bowed her head to her older sister and returned to her place on the chariot. The pressure subsided, allowing him to breathe normally. "Forgive my sister," Celestia said softly. "She is rightfully upset that you disrupted the peace of her night. Repercussions of your actions have been felt far and wide, but I ask of you to answer her question. Why have you brought so many here?" He lifted his head. "Princess, we had nowhere else to turn. We knew of your world before we came here. We have watched the events of the last 8 years here in Equestria, believing it to be a fantasy for most of that time." He pushed himself up to his haunches, the strength returning to his voice. "We banded together, those of us who believed in this world, and its ideals of harmony, love, and friendship. We called ourselves Bronies, and set out to make our world a better place, one that more closely resembled your own. The people of our world did not like us, however. We threatened what they believed to be proper for us to be engaged in. Hate rose, but we continued to try and love and tolerate our differences. 2 years ago, one of our gatherings was attacked by a mob bent on getting rid of us. It was then that we realized that we could no longer stay in our world. We had the means to come here, and so gathered all that we could and crossed over." Celestia frowned. "I'm not sure if I understand." Serial fidgeted. "It's hard to explain. You see, we're not ponies. We were human." A small gasp issued from both Celestia and Luna. "Take us to them," Celestia commanded. Serial blinked. "I'm sorry?" Celestia stepped from the chariot and approached. With every step she took, his body trembled. She stood before him looking down with a kindly expression, but something hard glinted in her eyes. "Time is of the essence, Serial Velocity. Take us to your people, and maybe we can save them." And that ends my first fanfic reading. So if you enjoyed it, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And if you have any fanfics you'd like me to read, just go ahead and comment about it in under the comments. So, see you next time.